In order to move on to this step, you guys have to have some kind of idea of what you want, whether it's a vase, a mug, maybe a bowl, but if it's a bowl, you probably want to throw this a little shorter. But whatever you guys decide to turn it into, you got to think about how you're going to create that shape, okay? Pushing on the inside of the vase or the cylinder here is going to make it expand, like I showed you when I put too much support on the inside. Pushing on the outside of this is going to make it shrink, like I showed when I collared it all back together. So what I'm going to do before I start shaping is I'm going to kind of clean up my cylinder. You can see the top of this is a little jagged. It kind of bounces a little bit, and there's a lot of slip on here. One thing with slip is after it dries or you fire it in the kiln, sometimes it can turn really sharp. And so if you're making a mug or a cup or anything, you don't want any sharp surfaces on this rim. Otherwise you won't want to put your mouth against it. So to clean up this cylinder, I'm going to take my sponge, and while it's spinning, I'm just going to set it inside here. And what that does is it takes out all the water and slip that's kind of fallen into the inside of this cylinder. And it flattens that out. And so now, after that inside's all nice and clean, I'm going to clean up the outside of this. And you can see it kind of has this little skirt on the bottom, or tree trunk, or however you want to identify that. And we got to cut that off and then totally smooth out and crisp up these edges. And I like to do that by taking my wooden rib and make sure I've got all my clay off of the edge there. I'm going to take this 90-degree angle. I'm going to take my hand and support the inside, make sure I tuck in that thumb, raise that elbow so I can get the height. I'm just going to take that 90-degree angle and I'm going to cut off the clay on the outside there until it's nice and straight, just like that. Now let's take that and throw that in the pan. Okay, just like that. I can see I have, it kind of fans out a little bit at the top. So I'm gonna take this and just collar that in one more time. And you wanna make sure your walls on the inside of your pot are straight. Let's see, I think I'm gonna actually do one more pull. It's a little thick right here, I can tell. Okay, now I can clean it up. Okay, so again, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna be really careful about touching that edge and making it bulge out. And I have the wooden rib at a slight angle, so it kind of cleans up that slip and cuts that edge, like that. So now I have a straight cylinder, a really straight inside. And now I'm gonna take my rim here, because you can see the rim kind of jumps up and down. And there's also a ton of slip on it. So I wanna clean that up too. So I'm gonna take my needle tool and take my fingers, and I need to support the needle tool and make sure it's held in one spot. Because if I stick this into the clay, it's gonna grab it and then it'll totally destroy my pot, so I really don't wanna do that. So I'm just gonna take my hand and I am touching the inside just ever so slightly. And then I'm gonna take my tool and push it against my finger. One reason I'm pushing it is because I'm redirecting the pressure away from my cylinder. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna keep this spinning. I'm pushing my needle tool onto my thumb, and I'm slowly, super slowly sticking my needle tool into the pot. Once it's all the way through, you pull it up really quick and then you get the top off. Okay. So now I'm just gonna lay my hands across this and smooth out that rim. Let's see, I'm gonna do it one more time. Okay, again, I'm gonna support the inside. I'm pushing this down, so I'm redirecting the pressure away from my pot, making sure that needle tool is supported. Take that, pull that right off. Okay. All right, so now it's all cleaned up and beautiful. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to kind of play around with the shape. I'm gonna do some kind of vase, I think. So I'll expand the outside, I'll shrink the top, maybe do a flare or something. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But one thing I can do is I'm gonna take my metal rib, I'm gonna expand the inside. So I'm gonna clean my hands off first a little bit. I'm gonna expand the inside so it kind of has like a little bubble shape, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how far I can push the clay. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing that I did earlier when I did it by mistake, per se. I'm just gonna expand that clay. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna expand the clay into the rib. So I'm gonna hold the rib right here. I'm gonna tuck my thumb in, and I'm gonna push on that inner wall, and I'm holding this at kind of an angle. I'm gonna push on that inner wall, and what you're gonna kind of see is that it's starting to create a bit of a bubble. So I'm gonna take my metal rib and I'm bending it into the shape that I want. And I'm just gonna set this against it as a support, because you don't wanna go too much, or else it'll kind of blow out the side, and we don't want that. You have to be careful how thin your walls are becoming too. So if you go too far, or if you push your walls too far, what will happen is it will pop out the side, and we don't want that. So I'm keeping in mind how thin my walls are going, how far I'm able to push this clay, supporting the outside with this rib, pulling it up. Whenever I touch the clay or pull my hand away, I always do it slow. I'm getting my rib a little wet so it kind of slips or skates across that surface. Because if it's really dry, it can cause a lot of problems. Okay, so I got that bubble shape right there. I haven't touched the top because I want to do something a little different with the top. But now what I'm gonna do, now that I have the shape, I'm gonna take this top and I'm gonna push it in. I wanna have a kind of skinny neck in comparison to the bottom. So I'm just gonna take my hands, and I'm just using my fingers to collar this time, whereas before I used my entire hand. Take my fingers and slowly push that in. If I want, I can push it in and pull up too. I want my neck to start about there, so I'm just pushing that. And make sure before you close the top, if you decide to do a small thing, that you get all the water out on the inside, because you don't want a ton of water to stay in there, because again, that will kind of eat away your pot and make it so the water breaks it down. You don't want that. Okay, so there's kind of the skinny neck right there. If I wanted to, I could do the whole thing skinny. I'll just do that by collaring with my entire hand. I'm slowly bringing my hands up to shrink that entire top. Okay, so because I brought this in, my walls became a lot thicker, right? And so one thing I have to think about is if I want to keep consistent thicknesses on my walls, I'm going to stick this in, and I'm going to actually pull using these fingers. I'm going to dig my knuckle right here, supporting the inside with my hand, and pulling that edge up. Okay, releasing pressure. See, going back down. Just like that. Okay, so I just smoothed that out a little bit. I'm gonna smooth it out a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna get my hands wet and color it in a little bit more. I don't know, this might turn out to be a kind of ugly pot if it's really weird proportioned. I don't know. Ah, see, I pulled my hands away too fast. And so what happened is it made it more of an oval versus a circle. So now it's kind of jumping weird. So I'm gonna fix that. There we go. So the top here got a little uneven. So I'm gonna take my needle tool, support the inside, make sure these fingers are out of the way. I'm gonna push it into my thumb, support, support, and slowly, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna clean that edge. Okay, I'll go back to my metal rib. I'm gonna clean the outside here. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to start step 5. Okay, so with shaping, you want to get the general shape, and then finishing is when you go through and clean it up.